Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another third-party unlicensed 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we are taking a look at none other than the Dark Toys Cross Red Star Rick, aka Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford in the original Blade Runner movie. Now I personally have been pretty darn excited to get this guy in hand, even though I don't have a ton of experience with Dark Toys. Now do bear in mind, this is third party, and that means it's an unofficial product. I got mine from Comic Sanctorum. I have put the link in the description below for your reference purposes only. This isn't a promotional video. This is a review on a figure I picked up for my own personal collection. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here of course we have the box art, and it's relatively compact. We've got DTM004 Rick on the front in a very Blade Runner-esque font. We do have an image of Rick Deckard down below, but the artwork is incredibly low res. I don't know if that's maybe the look they were going for, this soft, out of focus look, but for me it kind of just screams cheap. We do have DX up on the top corner, 1/6 scale collectible figure, Dark Toys and Red Star on the side. On the back we do have the origami unicorn, and a silhouetted image of what appears to be the actual figure himself. Now speaking of the figure himself, this will be my first ever Blade Runner figure, and yeah, I cannot wait to add him to the classic movies display. First in-hand impressions are relatively positive, but I'm already noticing a few things that we need to discuss. You do have one foam block up on top and another down below. What we are going to do now though is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Here we have all the parts and pieces. Now starting off with the display base first, it's the old school oval style base. It's tried and true. We've got Rick printed on the nameplate, which I'm really glad they went with. They could have printed some nonsense like Future Cop. This is definitely the classiest way of doing it. You do have some Blade Runner inspired artwork on the top there and a regular crotch grabber. Now I do want to jump right into it with the two head sculpts. Now they are both the same exact sculpt, it's just one has some battle damage and the other doesn't. You can also see that, curiously enough, we only get one neck connector. Now that means you are going to have to heat up the neck and pry this out, either with some hot water or a hairdryer, and then insert it into the other sculpt. Now the sculpt itself is very strong. I absolutely see the likeness to a young Harrison Ford. There's a ton of texture in the hair, and I really like the expression. However, there is one thing that lets this down, and that's the paint. It's, for lack of a better word, very waxy. Now, I personally do think this head sculpt can be saved with a repaint, but I know some people are going to jump up and down and say, Justin, you shouldn't have to do that, and yes, I totally understand, it should come perfect out of the box, but sometimes, unfortunately, they don't. The potential, though, is absolutely there. With a new paint job, this could just be the best 1/6 scale Harrison Ford head sculpt that I have ever seen. Now, the battle damage sculpt does have a little bit of blood below his nose and on his cheek, but it doesn't really look like blood, it more looks like red permanent marker. It's matte and it's completely lifeless. I would have loved a little bit of a darker red and some gloss on the surface, but unfortunately they didn't do that. So for now, I like the head sculpts, but I don't love them. He does come though with quite a few other parts and pieces, including the machine. Now you can swivel this section up and there is some red where your eye would go, and then some details printed on the screens on the other side. You do also have a couple of buttons that have been picked out in red, green and silver paint. Overall, I really like this piece, and it is rather scene specific. You also get a bottle of Johnny Walker with a proper Johnny Walker printed label, and a glass that is half full. Obviously, there is no liquid in here, it's just molded in some translucent orange plastic. Speaking of translucent orange plastic, that's exactly what they've used for the grips on his super iconic gun. I cannot tell you how many videos I've watched on Tested about Adam Savage going on about this gun. I love this piece. They've captured most of the details fairly well. Now, nothing actually moves here, but I'm perfectly fine with that. You do have some engraving up on the top of the barrel that actually says Steyr, so I'm pretty sure that's fairly accurate. You also get his police badge with the ID on one side, and it is done in a pleathery style cover. Will this degrade over time? Potentially, but only time will tell. Lastly, you do get the origami unicorn and his watch. Now, there is some detail printed on the screen. As you see, it says 1228, and this can of course be worn on his wrist. The origami unicorn is sculpted in this rubbery style plastic, so you don't have to worry about anything breaking, including the little horn up top. And then you get a full array of hands. Now, just like the head sculpt, they are very waxy. At the very least, you can say they match the detail of the head sculpt, meaning there really isn't any, but they are sculpted well. There are some veins and some wrinkles in the hands, but I think I'll be swapping the body, the hands, and potentially getting the head sculpts repainted. I know, it's a lot of work, but seeing as this is my only Blade Runner figure, I think it might be worth doing. What we are going to do now, though, is get Rick himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. Although you will notice he is standing on his display base. That's because he's fallen over one too many times. His ankles are awful. I don't exactly know why he's as top heavy as he is, but he does like to topple forward. So yes, I have gone with the display base, but now that he's actually standing there, I think he looks pretty good. He's not perfect, and there are a couple of things that we do need to discuss, but he does tick a lot of my boxes. The head sculpt isn't beyond saving, and even from a distance, it looks fairly reasonable. I can see the likeness to Harrison Ford. The outfit does hug the body where it needs to, but the body just happens to be one of the complaints I have. If I switch it out, however, it might look even better. So the potential is there. I know I've said potential already, but that's exactly what I'm seeing when I'm looking at this figure. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. Here we have him up close and personal. Now in just a second we will be trying out the battle damaged head sculpt. Even though the sculpt itself is identical, I still want to see what it looks like on the body. Now we do have to discuss the elephant in the room. The long neck issue. Now initially I thought it was the fault of the head sculpt. I thought the neck was just too long. But the more I look at it and the more I discover, I think the issue lies with the body. If you peel away the outer layers, you'll find that he has no traps whatsoever, and his neck just goes on forever. If you futz around with the collar and the suit jacket and the trench coat, yes, you can get it looking just okay. But in my opinion, this guy needs a brand new body, with some traps and a slightly shorter neck peg. So that's exactly what I intend to do for my display. Now, the outfit itself is tailored very well. It hugs the body in all the right places, and the material drapes well. Although I do have one complaint about it, and it's how bright everything is. Now I understand the patterns are accurate and the colors are accurate to an extent as well. It's just like they've taken Rick Deckard and slid the saturation slider all the way up. Everything is super punchy. Now if you wash the outfit a few times, maybe some of the dye will leave the fabric and it'll tone it down just a little bit. But for now, it looks brand new off the rack. I'm not saying it has to be filthy and dirty and grimy, it just has to be a little bit more toned down. Now, the outer jacket is, of course, a brown fabric. You can futz around with the collar. Sometimes in the movie he had the collar completely down, other times he had the back kicked up but the sides were pinned in place. I would have loved to have seen some magnets to keep the side down, because it would have been an accurate look, and even if you had the collar flat down, it still would have worked just fine, but nevertheless it kind of just floats freely. One thing that really bothers me on the coat is this stupid string. If you're not going to steam it and keep it down in place, just discard it, because it's going to get in your way in pretty much every pose. It just dangles there and has a life of its own. On the inside, you have this very vibrant orange suit jacket that is properly lined, and then a very colourful 80s style shirt. The tie is a nice flat bottom tie, which is accurate, but unfortunately, I had to retie it. Now, the tie was just far too short, it ended right around here. So that meant I had to remove the tie, fully retie it, and put it back on. It was no easy feat, but I'm super happy with the length now, and it sits at pretty much the perfect spot. But still, it is far too vibrant. Now, underneath all of that, he also has his belt with his pistol holstered, and then some brown pants. They are super straightforward and very wrinkled out of the box. These are going to need a little bit of a steam as well. Lastly, coming down to the shoes, they're a very weird shape. Now, don't get me wrong, maybe these are the shoes of the future, but they kind of look like a blend between business shoes and sneakers. They're very round, but also quite short. There isn't any detail whatsoever sculpted underneath, and you do just have some laces sculpted in up top. As for the battle-damaged head sculpt though, now, in order to attach this to the body, you do have to switch the neck connector between the standard head sculpt and this one. But I decided, why not just not do that and see what it looks like just sitting on the shoulders. And I think it looks really good. It sits a little bit lower, so his neck isn't anywhere near as long. I still think switching the body will be the right move, but for now, this will totally work. The head sculpt though is exactly the same, it just has a little bit of blood in certain places. Overall, I don't think this is the head sculpt I'm going to go with. I prefer the clean look, but do let me know which you prefer down in the comments below. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Dark Toys Rick on the left and the Hot Toys DX05 on the right. And as you can see, Rick Deckard is a little bit taller than Indy, and Indy is wearing his hat. Now, obviously, this is supposed to be the same person from roughly the same era. There shouldn't be any height discrepancies. But because Indy is a much older figure at this point, he's on a slightly smaller in scale body. If Hot Toys were to redo him nowadays, he would be on a slightly larger scale body, therefore this would work a little bit better. But yes, if you are putting them in the same display, this could throw you off just a little. For me though, it doesn't really bother me all that much. I'll be having them in different sections in the display, but maybe one day Hot Toys or another company would entertain the idea of doing a new proper licensed Indy, and then he would scale a little bit better with this Dark Toys Rick. Just going over articulation. Now bear in mind this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I am willing to go. Now starting off with the head sculpt, it is on a fixed neck, meaning there's a ball joint at the base of the neck itself. Looking forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. The arms will go up to there. They will of course go forward and back. They are on ratchets. and do remember you have multiple layers to contend with. The outer jacket, the suit jacket, then the business shirt. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to get everything to move. You'll have to futz around with the outfit. Butterfly joint at the shoulder, swivel at the bicep, a double bend at the elbow that does go past 90 degrees, and of course a regular 1/6 scale wrist peg. You do have a joint at the midsection and also at the waist, so crunching forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there, they will go out, swivel at the upper thigh, a double bend at the knee that's incredibly stiff, and of course a double ball peg down here for the ankle. Just wrapping up on the Dark Toys Blade Runner Rick Deckard. Now, going into this, I was pretty excited. I'm a big fan of the movie, and this is my first figure based off that film. At the end of the video though, can I say that my expectations were met? Yes and no. The accessories are great, both in the variety and the quality. The outfit is tailored very nicely, but it's very bright. Now, we all know the world of Blade Runner is dark and gritty and moody and atmospheric. This guy I don't think would fit right in. The outfit needs to be toned down quite a lot. The body is a little bit weird. The neck is overly long, he has no traps, so I think a body swap is in order. As for the head sculpts though, they're both a win and also a miss at the same time. It's super weird. The sculpt itself is great. It's undeniably Harrison Ford, but the paint applications are very waxy. They absolutely let this head sculpt down. I'm tempted to get this repainted because if I do, and I swap everything onto a slightly larger body with some traps, I reckon this is going to be a stunning figure. But right out of the box, I'm struggling to recommend him. Now, if you are a huge fan of the movie like I am, heck, maybe you're willing to put in the work. But if you aren't, then maybe this one is going to be a miss for you. Now, as I said in the intro, this guy is third party and he is unlicensed. That means it's an unofficial product. I got mine from Comic Sanctorum. I have popped the link in the description below for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video. This is a review on a figure I picked up for my own personal collection. While you are down in the description, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.